I'm Stacey Childress. I'm the CEO of the NewSchools Venture Fund out in Oakland, California. And I'm excited to be here today to, there's some clapping back there. Is that for, thank you, good, okay, it's a good start. Off to a good start. Excited to be here today to have a conversation with this great group of folks who are in the nonprofit and commercial sector, creating services, products, supports for teachers on many of the issues we've talked about all day. So one thing I want to alert you to, so we're going to go down the line here and have everybody introduce themselves. Then I'm going to ask an opening question or two, but we're not going to wait for the end to get your questions. So start thinking now about the kinds of things you'd like to know from this group, about what it's going to take to really pull all sectors together to support teachers really well as we move from traditional instructional environments to digital instructional environments and really take advantage of the power of technology to support teachers in their own learning. So you all be thinking about that because we've got a pattern here today of questions all at the end, which is great, but let's shake that up a little bit since we're in this mid-afternoon slot. So we're going to go down the... That's right, we're in the mid-afternoon, so 2 o'clock's a tough slot on an all-day conference. So let's just move down the line. Kecia, why don't you kick us off, part of a great member organization?
Kicking off. So I am Kecia Ray, and I am the chair of the ISTE Board of Directors. ISTE stands for, in case you don't know, the International Society for Technology and Education. We have over 20,000 members representing over 100 countries worldwide. So we have a lot of awesome stuff going on, and a lot of the people in this room have been to our conference, which is, I think, one of the largest education conferences as well.
Great. My name is Robert Schwartz. I'm at the New Teacher Center and Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor. We help and partner with districts to launch teacher induction programs to support beginning teachers in their first couple years in the classroom and help them with that transition from their university prep programs or alternative certification into the classroom and practice. We also do work with instructional coaches and school leaders.
Hi, I'm Mark Stevens, and I'm with the National Education Association, and I work in the Center for Great Public Schools. My role is I'm responsible, I started the NEA Academy, which was the NEA's first endeavor into teacher professional development, working specifically with external providers. I've now moved over to starting another program, which is we're now calling it the UNPD. We started the GPSnetwork.org, which is the PLC outreach. It's actually the first endeavor that the association has ever done in which it's not about membership, it's about the profession. So there's no activity within the GPS network that talks about organizing, political action, or any other issues around that, and it's open to all educators. And when I use the word educators, I'm talking about, it was interesting in the last panel, I'm talking about everybody that actually works in the educational setting, not just teachers, because we represent 3 million, and about 20% of our membership are non-classroom, what we'd call either alternative certified individuals or educational staff professionals, which is everybody other than a classroom teacher.
My name is Pat Wasley. I'm the CEO of the Teaching Channel. The Teaching Channel is, most of you know it as an open source website that provides great high quality video of teachers in their own classrooms, teachers narrating their own practices, but we have more. We've just built in the last couple of years an interactive collaboration platform that is a professional development system that engages teachers collaboratively to learn from and with each other as they work at growing and improving their practices. And we take video as a serious tool in improving teacher practice.
The professional development space, well, I'm just going to use the word market, industry. About $14 billion a year is spent on PD. So earlier you talked a lot about cost and whether or not we had enough money. So we spend $14 billion a year, it turns out, on professional development, but only $3 to $4 billion of that annually is actually spent on things outside of the school system, so buying products and services, which means about 10 or 11 billion of it stays inside the system, and it goes to pay for the other big constraint we've heard about today, time. it goes to pay for time. So it's stipends, it's substitute teachers for release time for teachers to be able to go to trainings or to have common planning time, to have, so I'm wondering, so there's a lot of money in the system, maybe not enough, but a lot. Teachers say they need more time. Teachers say they need more training, and yet we know there's a fair amount of money spent on training. Some of you are either creating things or partnering with people who create things. What do you think this urge, need, demand that teachers seem to be expressing for more is really aimed at? Is it about quality? Is it about the things they have available to them don't fit the need they have? I mean, you're out there trying to figure out how to serve them better from your role in nonprofit and for-profit concerns. What are you seeing? What sense might we make of this? Because it seems like there's money and some of the money's buying time, and yet we hear that not enough money, not enough time, not enough training. So what sense do you make of that? We've been hearing it all day today, too. We hear it a lot. Yeah, nobody wants that one?
I can start with that one. So I don't think that teachers actually want or need more time or more money. Okay, what they want or need is they want their time better utilized and better respected, and they want more control over how they spend their money. Okay, so I think that, you know, when we talk about should teachers be working 55 hours a week or 40 hours a week, most teachers are working 55 hours a week, and I think that we just need to understand that. You know, when I taught 7 years in a district school, and I had to work 55 hours a week because I was alone in my classroom, nobody was helping me, nobody was supporting me, and it was just me and my kids. And then the next 6 years, I worked in a highly collaborative, very supportive environment where I wanted to work 55 hours a week. Okay, and I think that if we can create the systems and structures within our schools that support that type of environment where people want to go to work and they want to engage and they want to learn, even the people that, you know, the teachers that we hear about that just work from, you know, whatever their contract says that they're supposed to work, if they're placed in an environment where they are being supported, where they are being challenged to grow, where they are being given the tools and strategies and have control over that, they're also going to want to work harder.
Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to make it a little more practical. There are 3 major drivers that are driving into professional development for teachers. One of them is and for educational professionals, is continuing certification. And we shouldn't overlook the fact that that's a huge driver into this marketplace. The other one is the contract. I'm here to represent the union, and I do represent the union, and the contract drives it. I will tell you that right after we started the NEA Academy, we saw we engaged about 35 different professional development vendors with them, who all saw a precipitous drop in the actual dollar numbers that were coming to them for the PD that teachers were paying. And you could drive that drop in income to that particular organization to the loss in membership directly affiliated with the association. One of the things that the union did in this marketplace, and again, I'm a unionist, but I've got a lot of other things. But one of the things, that did happen was the contracts that the teachers were living under, rightfully or wrongfully, drove a lot of the requirements and drove the pay lanes, which incentivized the teachers to continue their professional development. And as the contracts started to disappear in places like Wisconsin and Indiana and Ohio and Arizona, the PD requirements dropped off and the teachers stopped going. Now, I will tell you the third thing that drives professional development is the desire to do well. And every teacher that we have and the educators we have, a major part of that is the fact that they are committed to their profession and they're going to do it no matter what. They're teachers, it's what they do. Pat?
Okay, I think that you asked 2 questions. Do people want more time? And what's wrong with the PD they've been getting? And so I think the bottom line is the PD that we have been delivering for the entirety of my career is demonstration oriented. So we give people a demonstration of a good practice and then say to them, I hope you can do this in your own classroom, see you later. And I think what teachers are asking for is high-quality, job-embedded PD, meaning that they have to try the strategies that we're recommending in their own classrooms and get more feedback in order to learn how to do something. So so I think teachers really want high-quality professional development that means that they get to try things in their own classrooms and get feedback in their own classrooms, working with their own kids. So I think the quality issue is really important, and I think that that is and it's not just that teachers, I'm very supportive of teachers having the opportunity to share lessons and lesson planning, but I think they also have to have the opportunity inside their own classrooms to have people watch the way they're teaching kids, the pedagogical strategies that they're using, and figure out whether those are working inside classrooms with kids. So, so I think it goes beyond just sharing lessons. The second thing is, do teachers want more time? And I think 3 or 4 of the panelists have talked about the international comparisons. American teachers get less time to reflect and think about and work with other teachers than any other of the nations that are beating the pants off of us. And so I don't know any other, it is one of the clearest indicators of what's wrong with our system, right? Teachers need to be paid. I mean, maybe an 8-hour day would be good, where they're paid for a regular working day, where part of that time is allocated for collaborative learning to improve their practices, to improve student learning. So I think it's true, they need time.
Need more time. And it sounds like some of the time we're actually using in the system now for things that that are called training, may or may not actually meet the needs that teachers themselves think they have.
I think that actually Sean said it earlier today when he said meetings, not so much, right? So people spend a lot of time in schools meeting about curriculum, meeting about standards, meeting about, and what they really want to be doing is practicing, understanding what the standards look like inside their own classroom and getting some coaching while they're there. That's a more meaningful way to spend their time.
So I'm going to put my district administrator hat on because it's really hard to not have it on at this table. In my day job, I'm a district administrator of a Nashville Public Schools, and my role is to support professional development for 6,500 teachers. And they want respect. That's what they want. They want to be able to go to the grocery store and people not to say, oh, you're a teacher? That's so unfortunate. That's what they want. They want to feel like when they're teaching, they're the professional educator that knows what's best for their classroom, that they're not going to be second-guessed, that they're not going to be undermined or underestimated, that they're going to be the professional. We don't go to a physician, an attorney, or any other professional and second-guess what they do or say. But we do that to teachers each and every day. And our job as district people, and as people that support district people, or support teachers. NEA, Earl, great friend of mine. We beat the streets every day in Nashville to try to get this message out. Our job is to shore them up and give them the confidence, help build that respect, help retrain our profession to be what it ought to be, what it once was. Thousands of years ago, I feel, but it once was a very honored and privileged profession, and that's what we've got to bring back to our field.
So before you're thinking of your questions, because we're going to move here in a second, and then I'll pull it back. So how does technology actually contribute to this? Because the issues we're talking about aren't necessarily created by or solved by technology. Like, these are problems of practice that have faced the profession for a while. So what's the distinctive opportunity that technology itself brings to some of the new kinds of solutions to this challenge? And if you would kind of make a general point, but also if you could give us an example, like something that you're seeing, that you've heard about from a teacher, that you've seen in a classroom, that your organization does, and the results of that'd be great.
I think the fact that, your teaching colleague that's working right next to you may not be the best practice individual that you've got, but somebody across the country might be. So that's one of the things we're trying to do is through the PLCs and through best practices, the technology in terms of Google Hangout. We're creating weekly interactive webinar pieces where they can actually start to get together. So the technology is actually bringing together like-minded people, because just because you're in Montgomery County, which of course has some of the best teachers in the world, and they do, but your practice might be something where you need to talk to somebody who's in Seattle. And so technology, and what we're seeing is all of a sudden the connection that technology is making, and then all of a sudden you can be with a whole host of people that you never would have had access to in the world.
And Mark, how are you making those connections? Because that's always seems like one of the great promises, right? That if you're in Montgomery County and you really need to talk to somebody in Seattle, you can get on Google. But how does the Seattle person find the Montgomery County person?
We send, what we're doing right now, and again, we're just in the early stages of this, but we're sending out a lot of emails. We send a lot of emails to the 3 million teachers that we have and talking about the webinars that we've got coming up. Like, for example, we had one just a couple of weeks ago. It was to tweet or not to tweet, and it was for elementary teachers. And it was specifically for first grade teachers, because our teacher in New Hampshire is a teacher who's tweeting all day long, every single day in her classroom, and she connected with about 60 teachers in Florida, and all of a sudden, because we found that there was 3 districts in Florida that were creating opportunities where they wanted some way to reach out to the community. So we're just trying to create a mentoring opportunity through, starts with email, goes to the platform, and then once they come to the workshop, then they tend to start Katie bar the door, never leave a group of teachers unattended, because they will find a way to connect with each other. And so what we've discovered is all of the private emails. So we've actually had to add a robust activity or functionality to our platform so that the teachers can start to communicate with each other in a much more effective way within the community. So we added a bunch of technology to go with it.
So
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'll just throw out, because it's so connected to what you're doing with the PLCs, we have within ISTE PLN, so we have networks all across the world that specialize in kind of interest areas. So I like online learning, I'm going to join that PLN, and there's a community of thousands of teachers, much like what you are developing, that interconnect. We also have a space online called EdTech Hub that people can contribute to, and so it's a creator space they can add to and take away from that space. I think that what ISTE does really well is facilitates kind of a tribal mentality where we have kind of this collective of people that come together and we stay together in an online presence all throughout the year. And I may be a 5th grade science teacher in this county, but I can connect to thousands of 5th grade science teachers all over the world, and that's what helps me grow and develop as a teacher.
So I think that there are a couple of ways in which technology can really make a huge difference right now. One is that as teachers work in a collaborative online environment, and if they're using video tools, et cetera, they can create an evidence base for their growth, right? And that growth can be ported to a principal, a coach, a mentor, an external organization, or a group of teachers from around the country who are working on growing their skills and abilities. So I think one of the earlier points that people made was that professional development, we don't know how well the dollars are being spent. And I think one of the current changes that's really important is that new technologies can make an evidence-based professional development system possible. And that is, I think, really cool. In addition to which, if you start as a beginning teacher documenting your practice, you can see how your practice grows over a career, which I think is really exciting now. The other thing that I think is really important about new technologies is that, already mentioned, people can collaborate from anywhere in the country. On Labor Day this year, which is the last day of holidays for most of the teachers in the United States, we had 36,129 teachers working on a challenge about identifying high-quality teaching. And they were working collaboratively in smaller groups that they configured. We just put up the challenge, and then they figured out how to organize themselves in order to define what high-quality teaching looked like. And so they were submitting videos of their own and then commenting on the videos to and with each other, and then making further comments and deliberations, and then videotaping again. So I think that kind of collaboration where people can get non-evaluative feedback on trying something new is really profoundly important for enabling teachers to grow a much broader repertoire of skills for working with kids.
So Robert, anything on this one?
Yeah, so I'm just going to quickly highlight 3 things, and I think that they're all centered around one of the central tenets of professional learning communities, where if time and support are constant, learning is variable. but when time and support are variables, then learning is constant. So one of the things that technology does is it allows you to differentiate time and support. Okay, create those as variables. So there's 3 things that we're doing. First is we have an e-mentoring platform. So we normally do face-to-face mentoring, very rigorous, working with districts. We have an e-mentoring platform mostly for rural teachers. And within that platform, they create communities of teachers that are teaching similar subjects to them. They might be the only physics teacher within a 150-mile radius, and they have nobody else to talk to. But we put them with 20 other teachers from across the country and an expert teacher who's been rigorously selected and trained to be an online mentor to facilitate different learnings within that community. So they have that community as a constant, but then they also have opportunities to differentiate and do deep dives in specific cycles of inquiry around a topic that's specific to their classroom. Second thing that we're piloting is a lighter touch called Ask a Mentor. So a teacher will be able to upload a video of themselves in a classroom, say, I'm really struggling with student engagement. Okay, they'll show this video. We'll have one of our trained mentors that's be able to provide them feedback. The third thing that I'm going to talk about, and something that we're just kind of dipping our toes into, but we think is really promising, is micro-credentialing. Okay, where it doesn't matter if it's not about sitting in a session for a day and saying, oh, I got this, but it's about proving it. So Kecia might be able to get a concept and prove it in 2 hours. I might need 12 hours for it. Okay, Mark might be able to watch a webinar on something and understand it and apply it in his classroom, but I need a coach in my classroom to help me do that. So through micro-credentialing, where you have to prove that you can do a specific task, then what we just need is we just need the ability to create different support structures underneath it to support everybody to reach those individual tasks.
Yeah, it strikes me, so as we take a couple questions from the audience, it strikes me one of the really interesting things is that oftentimes when you think about technology being deployed for learning, whether it's for adults or for kids, so teachers or students, is that somehow it becomes less personal, that somehow the technology is going to be this mediator in human relationships or instead of human relationships, and that it's going to become very technical and isolating. But the powerful examples that all of you chose to cite are really about people connecting with each other around their practice. And the other thing that I always find fascinating in these conversations is it also puts a lot of power in the learner's hands. And so each story that each one of you told was about a teacher or a group of teachers figuring out what it is they thought they needed next and finding others that they could collaborate with on that, so the description of that sounds much more energizing and human than a lot of what we actually see going on, say, in a standard PLC, where people are sitting around just kind of meeting about meetings and things. Yes, Sean? Yes. So I think it's a really fascinating opportunity and affordance of the technology that sometimes we don't highlight enough. Just how empowering and how connecting it can be for people, and actually put some of the ownership, lots of the ownership, in the profession's hands.
One of the things that I would just add to that, Stacey, is that when teachers, what we've found in our collaborative groups that we're forming across the country in school districts across the country, is that teachers are giving each other feedback asynchronously. And we find that they're a little bit more honest with each other in an online environment than they are in a face-to-face environment. I found the same thing when I was doing research on digital learning inside schools. Kids give teachers way more feedback about their learning problems when they're online than they do face-to-face because of the peer pressure. So I think, in fact, there are some affordances that we really need to recognize, which are that people can give real feedback, and real feedback is what people need instead of being nice and polite in a public arena.
Yeah, no, it's great. Doug?
Yeah, Doug Levin, CETA. A question for the panelists. You're each from, organizations or associations or unions, different types of organizations, engaged in this effort of improving professional learning for educators and helping. I wonder how each of you think about success for your own organizations and how you measure it. So is it, is it frankly, it's paying for itself? I mean, people are coming to the program, you have a lot of members, or it's self-sustaining, or you're growing. Is it teacher reports of satisfaction, like we liked it? Is it measures of changes in teacher practice? Is it changes in student outcomes, whether that's learning outcomes or other outcomes? Is it savings of money for this same outcome? I'm just curious how you know when you've succeeded and how you each make that distinction, and I would guess it may be different for each of you because your organizations are different.
Yeah, what does success look like?
You want me to? I'll take a shot at that. I think that's a great question, and I appreciate it. Teaching Channel is a not-for-profit organization that provides a service to school districts, and so the first way that we know that we're succeeding is that 100% of our customers renewed for the first year. So we're only 2 years old, right? So I was hiding under my bed until I, figured out that people were like the product enough to keep going. So one way is by customers using the product. That's one. But we have a 5-year plan, and we have a series of studies planned and funded now, both from the federal government and from smaller foundations, to assess both how teachers are using the tools online. And then, second of all, how the ways in which teachers are using these tools online are affecting student learning. And one of the reasons we can tackle that is because we have an evidence base, right? So we can take a videotape of a teacher, we can then upload samples of student work and see whether the strategies she's trying are having an effect on kids' learning. It's not perfect, and it's going to take us a long time, but the bottom line is we can do it now. We can start down the road of making some very intelligent research opportunities to marry teacher learning to student growth. And once we can do that, I think that will help us really transform the system to lift student achievement.
Our goal is a little more lofty in the sense that Pat's got a deliverable. I've got a brand issue. So the association is in the process of trying to position itself in a little bit of a different way, and realizing that as we move into the 21st century, we have to be a little bit different than we were before. It is not the 60s, 70s, and 80s any longer. So we're trying to be in a position where we're trying to lead the profession, and we believe that if anybody should lead the profession, it should be the educators who are responsible for it. And by putting tools in their hands, so our measurement ultimately, Doug, would be if the ideal scenario for me would be the superintendent, the UniServe director, and the president of the association coming in and saying, the association provided me a solution, and it's helping the teachers be better at what they're doing. We're just about there with one of our districts.
So for us at the New Teacher Center, the short answer to your question is yes. We're measuring all of that. I guess the ultimate measure for us used to be our teachers staying longer in the classroom. That's a value proposition that districts understand. Districts are reporting that they are spending anywhere between $9,000 and $33,000 to hire and onboard and train a new teacher. So our program has proven that teachers will stay in the classroom longer. Ultimately, though, it is about accelerating teacher practice in order to impact student learning. We've had studies done in the past on that, and we're currently early stages in a couple federal studies on that, and we're excited to get the results on that.
So ISTE is a membership organization, so it's really important to us that our members renew every year, and we continue to grow our membership. We recently, I say recent, in governance terms it feels recent, but it's over the last 4 years put in a governance model whereby we have ends interpretations, and so we're very intentional about what those ends are and where we want to be in the future, and how we measure our CEO and staff for their performance against those ends. So every quarter, he brings a beautiful sheet to us telling us how many members that we have, what touch points we've had with all of our members, how engaged our members are. We're still struggling with how do you measure that engagement. We, as a board, have been very directional with our staff that the conference is a one point in time event, and we want things to be kind of 365. They pay for a year, an annual membership. And so the staff has done an extraordinary job of thinking through, well, what kinds of things can we do all throughout the year to continually engage our members, including advocacy work, professional learning opportunities, webinars, going into districts and helping. But these are kind of items that we assess every quarter to measure the success of our organization.
Michelle?
Very much, you've already started talking about it, but I just want to call it out explicitly, which is this tension in that we know that schools that are the highest performing, and schools that also in particular move lower SES kids to higher standards, have a coherence, a goal. They have a goal around high standards and a coherence of moving there. So assuming that I am talking about in a context of respect for teachers and teacher leadership in this, there seems to be a tension between individual empowerment and choice, about how you find what you're interested in, what you think will help you, and setting the standards, setting a context, or trying to move in some way that is coherent with what other teachers are doing. And I wondered how your organizations think about that in terms of professional development.
Yeah, how do you individualize in an age of coherence and
I think that there are, people differ. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. So some people like to learn collaboratively. That would be me. I like learning in a group better. I like feedback. I think that's very helpful. Other people like learning alone. So we built our system so that people can do individually guided pathways on their own. And then we've made it possible, and we made that possible first, because it's my learning preference, so that people can learn collaboratively. And I think providing people with the option to learn in both ways is important. But I think you're asking another question, which is how do we provide the kind of stable support for teachers across the country when their districts aren't all equal? And I think that new technologies and networks of teachers can contribute to creating a more stable environment for teacher growth. And I think the unions have a role to play, and I think that technology organizations have a role to play in providing growth-oriented opportunities for teachers that aren't dependent on their district. I don't mean to suggest that we want to undermine districts' approaches in any way, shape, or form, just to complement them in places that are less visionary than some we've heard from today.
Yeah. Robert, you have something on this?
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with Pat, and I think that it's important to support the districts that want to be supported in this work, and it's also important to provide teachers with alternatives. So part of our philosophy is that we work with the district in order to build their capacity to carry our programs on long after we're gone. Now, there are challenges around that because there's changeover, there's turnover, there's new leadership, there's all sorts of other things, but when a district can, and I think Josh was talking about this on the earlier panel, when they can reimagine what the word school leader means and empower everybody, or not everybody, but empower lots of individuals across the school and across the district in order to think about what are those adult-to-adult learning opportunities that we're going to provide all of our educators. And what a lot of the panelists up here and what other people have been talking about is the promise of learning online is that there's just a lot more options now, and that those school leaders can point the people that they're working with in lots of different places. So I think that trying to help the system set up this ecosystem or environment for multiple school leaders and district leaders to help all the educators on campus in service of the students and provide them multiple options to get to where they're going.
I just wanted to add an example that I think is exactly what you have described. We've done it in our school district where, because I'm connected to this amazing network of people, I was tasked to prepare our 6,500 teachers to be able to give an online assessment. And I got the call on Thanksgiving and had to have it ready by Christmas. And so I made, rapid fire calls out to my network and partnered with Q and ISTE to develop an online training that we were able to execute on February 23rd. All of our teachers were able to finish it by August 1st, but it was flexible. They got to do it from home. They could do it on snow days. They could do it however they wanted to. They all have a common vocabulary at the end. And I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not been plugged in to a network and had resources within that network that I could pull from and think about solutions. So that's kind of wearing both of my hats, but I'm really thankful to have that opportunity. And it was great success. 97% of our teachers completed that training.
That's great. Frank?
Hi, Frank Gallagher with the Cable Impacts Foundation. And a lot of what we've been talking about over the course of today, what we know of the principles of really effective professional development. We knew 20 years ago, 25 years ago, we could have been giving teachers that kind of professional development.
Yeah, this one sounds like it's going to be too important to miss, so let's make sure we've got you.
Thanks, Jeff. We've known for decades the principles of good professional development and effective professional development for teachers, but we haven't been doing it. Technology is a new wrinkle that enables some very interesting and powerful things, but fundamentally there seems to be some kind of institutional or systemic failure or major obstacles that are put in by the system that's preventing us from doing what we know works and have been the case for 20, 30 years. So we kind of need to be talking about a little bit higher level. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to be talking about pockets of excellence and pockets of innovation. So could we talk maybe about some of the institutional failures and obstacles?
Sure. The answer is, if you put the professional at the center of their PD, which we always seem to fail to do because in many cases the district wants to take control. I'll give you an example of this is my introduction to professional development. I'm my second year of teaching. I'm walking in and there's about 40 teachers walking in behind me, all with file folders filled with papers, and I thought, oh, these guys came prepared. They all sat down, plopped open the papers, started correcting it, and the woman next to me turns to me and says, honey, it's the rule of one. And I looked at her and said, the rule of one? And she says, if you get one thing out of this day, it's a great day, and I got to get my papers corrected. The problem has been is the districts have been in the middle of this scenario for a very long time, and I think it needs to be a more collaborative, blended approach in which the professional is put center. The district becomes part of it, the professional becomes part of it, and some of these outside organizations can help along the way. But I think we keep missing the fact that the educator is not really in charge of their own PD.
So I think that there's one really good way to, changing habits like professional development is like weight loss, right? I struggle with that constantly. But, it doesn't work just to watch a video. Otherwise, I'd be very thin. You have to actually take action, right? And so I think in order for us to really ensure that people are going to do more than just show people what good practice looks like, is that we have to ask for evidence of teachers trying the strategies. And that's not a punitive requirement. It is an ennobling requirement. Show us what you can do with this. If we think about athletes, everybody knows this analogy. Athletes graduate from high school with hundreds of hours of video analysis of their playing. Teachers don't get any, right? So, we need an evidence base, and we need to ask for it, and we need to make sure that people are, and encouraged to provide it. That way we know what's actually happening, and I think it enables a kind of transformation.
And it's not used in their evaluation.
And it's non-evaluative. So that speaks to the possibility that people can try new things and fail at them for a while and try again, so.
I mean, I think that we have a good opportunity now to try to realize this, because you're right. I mean, we've known for decades what good professional development looks like, and a lot of people up here and on other panels have talked about what it looks like, and I think we could probably all sit down together in about 15 minutes, just hammer it out. Yes, this is the tenets of good professional development. Someone brought up Learning Forward's already done that work, and they have. It is a huge challenge because we have 3.4 million public school teachers. Okay, we have districts and states, mostly districts, that do understand it and do get it and do model it. Now, how do we take those proof points and scale them out? I think that's one of the challenges. And how do we remain and make sure that those stay constant in a profession, and I'm talking about district leadership, that turns over quickly. So I think that these are some of the big challenges that we have. And I think part of the answer is trying to mobilize the 3.4 million teachers to take the profession back and provide them with some of the tools and supports in order to do that, regardless of what other type of what type of leadership they're getting from above them, while at the same time trying to build that system on top as well.
Great. Ira.
Thank you. Ira Sokowitz, the Learning Games Network. You mentioned in passing at the start of the panel the affordances of technology and a little bit about personalized learning, and I'd like to delve just slightly more deeply into that. In fact, in the response to the last question, it was mentioned professional at the center of their PD and an evidence base. I work in game-based learning, so gaming has a lot of the affordances of technology, including leveling, help, adaptive learning. What I haven't heard much mention of, except for Robert in the middle of another response, was about mastery-based learning. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on how we could utilize the affordances of technology to have mastery-based learning as the means by which educators can not only obtain their training, but have the validation, the evidence base that you were speaking of.
So the All-Star training that we developed in collaboration with a lot of people across the country was a mastery-based model. And when I sat with my superintendent and said, here's what we want to do, I've got this plan, it's going to look like this. I said, in order to get to the next module, there's 8 modules that the teachers progress through. They have to master the first module. So they're going to master, move, just like we're doing standards-based or mastery-based grading for our K-12. So we said, well, let's just do exactly the same thing that we're asking the teachers to do in their classrooms, we're going to do it in their professional development, right? You could not believe the conversation that ensued around, well, what is mastery? And you know what we settled on? 100%. You're not 70% perfect, you're 100%. So let's go for 100%. They have to get every single question right. Now, when we implemented this, and the teachers could do this, it was very flexible, very personalized. They could do it in 100 different ways, but they had to master each module. When they didn't master, they couldn't move. And the help desk blew up with, I don't know how to, my module 2 won't open. I don't know, I can't get from module 4 to module 5. I said, well, go back and check your answers and see if you got every question right. Well, I only missed one. Well, this is 100%. So it was a great teaching moment for them. They were very reflective in it and saying, this is exactly what I ask of my students. We get unlimited opportunity to go back and redo. We gave them unlimited opportunity. So it wasn't punitive. It wasn't like, you're done. They had unlimited amount of time and opportunity. But it was a very reflective experience for them, and they all said that with their teaching in implementing mastery-based learning, grading, that they had a deeper understanding now of what we were talking about. But we involved 150 teachers in designing this training and in implementing the training, and we also partnered with our local union. So it was very collaborative and very inclusive as we designed it. And I think that's why it was so successful.
Anybody else on this mastery-based question?
Just real quick, I mean, I think that mastery to me means that you can show what you know. And I think that that's where micro-credentialing, and I brought that up before, but micro-credentialing or badging I think is really promising, and what we're even thinking about, and I think that this might be a couple years down the line, but is how do you string together a whole bunch of micro-credentials into a macro-credential and something larger than that.
Robert, could you say a little bit more about what you mean by a micro-credential?
Sure.
There's probably a handful of people in the room that have got you, but
Sure,
there may be
so-
some others that are not quite sure.
Yep. So, like in our context with training mentors and coaches, when we think about what are the discrete skills that we want them to see and be able to do, it might be facilitation of a professional learning community. It might be providing observational feedback. It could be being a reflective practitioner. And these are things that what we can do is we can. Those are 3 concrete skills that we can provide a rubric for and say, provide this type of evidence for it, and then we can certify you or credential you that you are an expert in that. And what we're thinking about is we have a continuum of all these different skills. Can we string all those together to create, or kind of like a macro credential or a certification that you are, in our sense, a new teacher center trained or new teacher center verified coach or mentor.
So Jim, you have something.
Yeah, I want to actually follow up on Frank's question, and actually please answer as bluntly as you can, because I think he asked a critical issue. And I don't want to hear from you guys in the big picture, and we at least have a couple of our district leaders here. I see Mark and Johnny are still here. Here's my question. So if that's true, if the answer is correct, that we know what works, we just don't, and it's because it's not teacher-centered, it's because it gets lost at some point at the district level. That's an overgeneralization, but let's say that that's a big part of the issue. How important, if you look at it the next 10 years, this is critically important that we get PD right in a digital learning environment. How much is it going to be non-districts like the teaching? This is a big issue for Common Sense Media. That's why I'm asking you. So we built this big platform, particularly now Common Sense Graphite. And what we found out is now people use it for PD. We thought it was going to be a rating service. It is a rating service. It's very popular. But what they really want to know is, how do I teach? They really want PD on it. So the question is, will NGOs, this is a panel about NGOs and industry, will NGOs and industry and unions replace the district in some ways in providing this? Is that where we should go? If we are going to scale it for the 3.4 million public school teachers, Robert, and we have problems with it in a lot of districts, to be honest, should it just be provided by NGOs and unions and industry and skip the middleman?
No. You can't bring the district I think Sean said it earlier today. You've got the district has to have a plan, and we need to be part of that plan. Industry will bring great innovation to the PD world. The district will bring the vision and the strategy, and the NGOs will bring innovation along the way to help deliver it in lots of different ways. No, to me, the absolute key equation to this whole thing is the district, the superintendent, the administration, and the teachers coming together to say, this is what we need for the one thing that we're all here for, which is the students.
So I'm just going to say not yet. I mean, I think that the possibility exists, but not within the next few years. I think that for the next few years, we still do need to engage the districts. People were talking earlier about how schools are Blockbuster, teachers are beyond Netflix now, and I think that that's true. And we need to start recognizing that and realizing that they're consuming content on Hulu, YouTube, Netflix, Pinterest, all these other places in their daily lives. And we need to meet them in those same places. And is it going to be a district or a group of districts or the federal government that's going to provide that type of change? I'm not sure.
So I think it's a really interesting question. I think I think the districts, many districts that I have the good fortune to work with right now are on the cusp of understanding, of finally recognizing how ineffective the practices that they have been using for many years are, and trying to figure out how to blend that with online learning capabilities so that they can both help people see what they might really benefit from in their classrooms, and then giving them the opportunity to practice through blended learning. So I think that's very promising at the moment, that professional development transform from just demonstration oriented, where you show people what you want them to be doing, to showing them and then asking them to try it, and then analyzing that, and then going on to another strategy. So I think blended PD is a really important dimension of the work at the moment. But I also think that we've run a series of challenges for teachers, and I think people are ready to learn collaboratively around the country. And the more opportunity we can provide people to engage with others around the country, I think that's a very exciting opportunity. So we had physics teachers from all 50 states working on a physics challenge, right? And a lot of those teachers are the only person in their building. So collaborating around the country is really exciting for them. So I think we want both, right? We want districts to transform, and we want the opportunities for people to go outside of the district environment to collaborate more broadly.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit surprised at your answers, because the stories that got you the most animated about what you're seeing and what you're working on were about teachers taking into their own hands both the recognition of what they wanted and needed in terms of learning, and the fact that through technology they could find others, and through some of the platforms that you're supporting and building, that they could find others from whom they could learn those things without just having to rely on what their superintendent bought for them, which generally they don't like very much, all the surveys say, or what their grade level or content area chair has provided for them. So I think it'd be interesting to see over the next 5 or 10 years what happens when you really do have the power
Right.
of both diagnosis and finding treatment in the hands of the learner, whether that's students or teachers.
I think when teachers have the opportunity to use their own PD dollars, we'll see a lot more happening nationally. Right now, they don't have that opportunity, and so they're reliant on their districts.
So how do we unlock dollars and put more of it in teachers' hands so that they can actually buy what they think they need from the marketplace at large?
And the goal is,
No
it's
law-
not,
oh,
I'm sorry, but it's not going to happen without bringing the superintendents on board.
That's
And
right.
that was when I said no.
Yes.
This has to be a partnership, because they're the ones.
They
that
have
are-
to release the money.
They have to release the money,
Yeah.
and they have to understand it, and I think the good ones do. I think there's a few that don't. And that we also have to break the infrastructure of the PD department inside the district, which has a pretty hard stranglehold in some cases over those dollars.
You want to make one last point, Kecia?
Well,
as the head
I
of
was just going
ISTE?
to brag on my superintendent, actually.
Okay.
Because he did that. He, as soon as he came into the district, he blew up the professional development office, and he said everybody that's in central office and an administrative position is responsible for developing everybody in this district. He also says we're a school district, not a district of schools. And so we have to work together. And he does give the money directly to the schools and encourages principals to give it directly to the teachers. So if every district could be like ours. Just kidding.
Well, that was a great panel. And Stacey, thank you very much for doing such a good, that was a terrific panel. So let me just tell you what's going to happen. So Tom, the next portion of, we get a break for 10 or 15 minutes, then Tom Wheeler, the FCC chairman, is going to come here, and he's the along with Arnie Duncan, the person who put together the lead commission. So Tom's going to talk probably about Connect Ed and how that relates to teaching. The big thing I would ask all of you is to think about, and that's why I asked the question, and provocative about your answers were great, is look, we are at the cusp of big time change here. We've heard a lot of great stuff from the first panel on. The question is, how do we scale it? How do we scale it massively? And the final panel is about policy and about how we're going to do this everywhere. We know it's happening in Mooresville, Mark. Johnny, we know you do we do this entire. How do we make this? And it's obviously happening in Nashville. How do we scale all this stuff, though? That's really what the policy panel is going to be about, and also why the Sunnylands process matters, because this isn't just a discussion. We're trying to figure out strategy that we can all take out and go forward. So thank you, great panel. Take a break, but let's convene. We'll get you back in here. When Tom Wheeler's ready to go, we're ready to go. Thank you very much.